crazy now, right? Like there are some mornings that you also wake up and you're convinced you're in a down is up, dystopian, sci-fi, Black Mirror, nightmare future present? Okay, it's common ground. My name is Daria, and I got fired. I started a job in alternative rock radio at 27 in 1997, which in retrospect was kind of like opening your very own waterbed franchise in 1983. For a few solid years, it was like, this is amazing. Everybody loves it, and the best part is, demand is only going to rise. But despite nothing being more rock solid than the record industry, it still, after that initial period, was wonderful. It was validating, it was creatively satisfying, it was rewarding, and I did it for 20 years. And after 20 years, you think, well, I'm ensconced, surely. 10, 15, 20 years, pretty successful in what's especially a fickle industry. Surely that's got to be like some kind of tenure. But it turns out not. First, my best friends got fired. Boom, boom, boom. And then my hours were cut and cut and cut and cut. And then I got hauled into the office, and they said, well, you're working so few hours now. We can't possibly sustain what we were paying you. So how about this instead? How about we pay you like slightly less than what you made 15 years ago? How does that sound? And I said, I think I would hate that, actually. And they said, oh, okay, well, you've rejected our first and best and last offer. So just to be clear, you are choosing goodbye forever. And I said, what? That was to the door. And I bet you think that exchange was condensed. So I went home, and I did what you do. I lay down on the cement part of my backyard and cried for, we'll just say, 9 hours. And then I thought, all right, well, that's chapter over. It's not the ending I was hoping for, but forward ho. And I genuinely thought, well, now I'll have to sort through the many offers that will doubtlessly come my way. Choosing which one I want to do, I mean, that's going to be arduous. And I wasn't completely naive to think that. I mean, there had been plenty of offers, 2 decades of them. But they were not there now. There was a little bit of, well, that was in 2015. It's a whole different cultural landscape now. And there was a lot of, definitely in 2 weeks, and definitely in a month, and for sure in 6 months. And then I turned around, and they were phantoms. And I turned around again, and they were gone. And I turned around again, and so was all my savings. But then, though I had become poor in money, I became rich indeed in utterly worthless platitudes. When you're in crisis, you can't very well say, just please don't give me advice, because it ostensibly comes from a place of love, and mostly because, by God, people love to give it. And it wasn't a little bit. It was like a flood, like when the elevator doors open in The Shining. It just came. And it's never, my advice is the address of this job that is available. Or my advice is the location of where treasure lies buried. It's this. Have you tried doing one thing each day to further your job search? If you're somebody that said, hey, I told you that, then don't please feel hurt, because fully 100 other people did too. And I'm talking about them, not you. Your advice is great. Everything happens for a reason. That's never finished. The end of that is everything happens for a reason, and that reason is because people are awful, and so is life. Or even bigger than that was, now you're free to find an even better job and do what you've always wanted. It's good news. Job loss is a really weird thing because it can be catastrophic. But for some reason, socially, it's almost never regarded that way. It's instead as if the right response is, yay, opportunity, which can be like telling someone whose house vanished into a sinkhole, all right, now's your chance to find your dream house. But that was my dream house. All my stuff was in it. So I thought, okay, so now I'll just go for any job that I'm remotely possibly qualified for, and it'll be fine and on my side. I'll have moxie and experience and can-do spirit, and I'll just stride right in. And I had 1 million meetings, and this is how they all went. I'm them now. We would love to work with you. And it's a perfect fit. It's uncanny. And we're so glad you found us. And we are all excited. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and never speak again. And there were a few, just under 1 million, I guess, that went, we are happy and excited to utilize you to your full capacity. And please understand, there will be no pay or compensation of any kind. So that was somewhat unusual. I guess what job searching felt like when I was 27 was kind of like this. This is me at 27. Hey, I think I'd like to try that job. Here, doll, have that job. Hey, I feel like I want to try that opportunity. Here you go, toots. And then this is me at 47. I'm moving slower. So I have a whole lot of experience and planning stuff and performance stuff and writing and creating and this and that, and I was just wondering if maybe up your social media game, Grandma! Did that read as middle fingers? Rage, hate. And every so often, every once in a great stretch, something would manifest, and I'd think, that's it. That's the reason none of these other things worked out. It was so I would be available to do this, and it's perfect, and it's fate, and I'd get all in and so excited, and then it would spectacularly not happen. And I think the good news now is that things can't possibly get any worse, and then they would. And I started to really hate who I was. And it became clear to me that all the things that I thought I was good at were things that had no value to anyone. And what I had believed were achievements had just been luck all the time. And that luck had run out. So this is a good thing to remember, and weirdly easy to forget, especially when you're in pain. Everybody at all times is going through some sort of crisis of their own. And their crisis is always going to seem way more important to them. And it's normal and understandable that that will be the case when you're emotionally immersed in something. It works the other way too. Here's a weak analogy. It's kind of like when people talk about their toddler and they think, my toddler is amazing. And everything they do is amazing. And ergo, if I have my toddler record the voicemail message on my work phone, everyone will find it appealing and charming. This is a thing that actually happened. I had a friend who's a paraplegic comforting me, and everything's going to be okay. It's not as bad as it seems. And I was like, no, you can't possibly understand how hard it is for me. I got free stuff all the time. I got to talk with my friends. I got to go backstage at concerts. I got to interview Kevin Nealon on multiple occasions. I was a remotely big deal in non-syndicated, drive-time local radio. To fall from that height. I'm paraphrasing, but it had to seem like that. Although I do want to make one point absolutely clear, and that is I am entirely serious about Kevin Nealon. This is my actual thought worth spreading. Like, if you have one takeaway, make it be this. Kevin Nealon is amazing. He is amazing. It can make you crazy when you're in pain and people try to relate to you. It can feel like one-upmanship, or it can feel like it's a bad analogy to your situation, or you can feel like no one could possibly understand the uniquely dire and desperate, like how bad it is but they can. They all can. In radio, a daily challenge was to generate enough content to fill a show, basically, enough content to fill the time slot each day. And it became clear pretty early on that nobody, especially not caught in traffic, caught in a commute, wants to hear a litany of endless happy, awesome stories about your happy, awesome life. I mean, people do, but they're all on Instagram. The daily disappointments and the embarrassments and the frustrations, that was the gold stuff. So weirdly and sort of wonderfully, when those things inevitably happened in everyday life, it became exciting. It became, that's great, that's 340 to 355, that's content. And those became the good stories. When a badness happens to you that shakes up your life, whether you want to be or not, you're in a new story. And it's the badness itself that gives you the potential to have that be a really great story. Because all, and I mean all, the really great stories are full of badness and stress. Studio-sanctioned amphetamines aside, Dorothy did some happy singing and dancing, but do not forget, she was miserable. She did not want to be in Oz. She got to Oz and she's like, just get me out of Oz. And she meets characters and creatures along the way, and they're like, what do you want more than anything? And she's like, do not be here. And they say, what have you learned, Dorothy? And she's like, that home is great. And she gets home and she's like, this is all I ever wanted. There has never been a triumphant, heartwarming tale where someone goes from relative comfort to anticipated victory. That sucks as a story. It's enviable, but it's not a good story. Our delight and applause is directly proportionate to the amount of insurmountable odds-facing, soul-crushing, ass-kicking that happens along the way. Bilbo had been happy. He did not want to go anywhere. Gandalf flat out forced him to leave his home. And the entire journey that he was on was pretty much one big stress-fueled nightmare. It went like this, spoiler alert. It went bad, bad, but bad, 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 invisible, bad, bad, but bad, 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 and probably all the way back again. And he doesn't even get a love interest. I think at the end it's like, and then he married some lady hobbit. Luke Skywalker, he wanted to leave home. He was like, I'm restless. But it took his home being blown up and his guardians murdered to even get off his planet. And then once he had a few truly glorious moments, especially the one. But aside from that, he pretty much went through a series of maximum anxiety suck events. And he doesn't get a love interest ever. I mean, maybe he does in the comics, I'm not really sure. Support your local Dark Horse comic retailers. Daniel LaRusso gets a love interest, kind of. In the first Karate Kid, there's like 1 1/4 of a date montage, and then everything that happens to him after that is painful and agonizing and awkward and embarrassing and unfair and crazy, and he gets his ass handed to him over and over and over again, and you better believe that is why we cheer him at the end. It's not for the one successful kick. It's for all the stuff that came before. A story I would have loved to tell you, a talk I would have loved to give you, would have been how I turned crisis into opportunity and overcame depression and rejection and launched my new and improved job identity. But I don't have that story yet. I am still intensely unemployed. My daily anxiety is like an EDM song that keeps getting louder and louder, and the bass never drops. But I can tell you this. Things will very probably, possibly, sort of be a little bit okay again eventually. And your story can never be really, truly great unless there are times when it's really, really bad. It's okay that it's bad. You can actually feel really quite bad for a lot longer than you think. And still be okay. When the worst happens outside of your design and unplanned for, you don't want to go through it. You get to go through it, though. You get the chance at that kind of story. And I wish more for all of you than a life free of change or pain. I wish you the kind of life with applause at the end.